It's coming back. We just had it.
Okay. Well, hello. Good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for attending tonight's extraordinary council meeting. Happy New Year to you all in this 2020 or 20plenty as we're calling it. I'm happy to say that council's now recording its council meetings and we're making them available on the internet. And this recording will be made tonight, and after some minor formatting, the recording will be made available on council's website in the coming days. As this is a new system, please be aware we may experience some teething problems, so just bear with us tonight if that occurs. As this recording will be available as a public record, those in attendance, including councillors, staff and members of the public, should refrain from making any defamatory statements. And I also note that signs indicate upon entry to the chamber suggest your physical attendance at this meeting is your acceptance of the condition that your image or voice may be recorded and made available on the internet, as well as being retained in the archive of council's recorded council meeting. So if you do not agree with that, now would be the time to leave the room. I would also like to remind everyone that in accordance with clause 15.22 of the Code of Meeting Practice, a person must not live stream or use an audio recorder, video camera, mobile phone or any other device to make a recording of the proceedings of the meeting of the council or a committee of the council without the prior authorisation of the council or the committee. And also in accordance with clause 15.23 of the Code of Meeting Practice, any person who contravenes or attempts to contravene clause 15.22 may be expelled from the meeting as provided for under section 10.2 of the Act. So, that all being said, I'd like to commence with acknowledgement to country, and I acknowledge we are gathered today here on Biripi land. I pay my respect to Biripi elders past, present and also those emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders that may be with us this evening. And I'll move on to item number 2 now. Apologies, do we have any of those, Mr GM?
No.
No apologies, thank you. Item 3, disclosures of interest. Do we have any? Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have a disclosure of interest. It is a non-pecuniary, less than significant interest in the agenda item 701. Both my wife and I are directors, trustees and beneficiaries of our own self-managed superannuation fund, which owns shares in several ASX-listed public companies that are significantly involved in water processing and purification activities, excuse me, both in Australia and overseas. We have no interest in any local business or activities in this area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Any other disclosures of interest from councillors? No, I see none. Okay then. All right. As this is an extraordinary meeting, leadership and governance, there'll be no matters on the agenda. Your community life, none. Your business and industry, also nil. So we will now move to the public forum matters on the agenda, and we have 4 speakers. So do I have a mover and seconder that requests to speak? In the public forum matters on the agenda be acceded to. Moved by Councillor Griffiths, seconded by Councillor Dixon. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. I see none against. All right, so we'll move to Miss Meredith Howard, who is in opposition. Would you be in the room, Meredith? Please come to the lectern. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, I ticked both on the form. I wasn't opposing or agreeing. I just wanted to have a bit of a say how it affects swimming pools. And I don't understand the full length of what level 4 would take us to. However, I just think there needs to be a bit of responsibility, because if we really, this is just a personal opinion, if we're really strict on water restrictions, people may fill illegally, but if we had some measures in place that allowed them, say, myself as a pool building company, where I felt it was necessary, I mean, filling pools, you can't construct a pool without water. As we backfill a pool, we have to put water in it. Now we actually buy our water. We don't use any water from the tap, so we always try to consider the community. But it was more so, I've also been talking to Brad from Cascade. My understanding was if the levels drop below the skimmer box, which was 300 mil within a skimmer box, you can't maintain pools. The skimmer maintains the pool and children will swim regardless. So it was just a concern about how we have some responsibility over water clarity, protecting infection and disease. And also, you know, as an example, I know my mum is very, she won't flush her toilet, you know, unless she really needs to. So there's people like that, and there's people who would be the opposite. So if we had something in place where, say, you needed your pool serviced and Cascade could give you a certificate that it was appropriate of those levels, just some sensible measures to be put into place. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but I think if we're too strict, then maybe people will go the other way. Whereas I know, as my mum is a classic example, if I had to pay for, or she had to pay for a pool service and that allowed some water to go in her pool, and she got some sign-off, she would do that. So it's more, you know, I'm not really well researched on it, but as I said, I've seen cases in Sydney where children have drowned in the swimming pool, and I always have a concern as a pool builder because our pools go green before we can clarify them. It's part of the process, and in summer it happens quickly. And there's been quite a few cases in the coroner's court where they couldn't find the children in the water because the water was green. So it's just, I guess, managing it safely as opposed to strictly, and hoping that people will adhere to that. And that was it.
Excellent, thank you. And you didn't take up all of your time. Just stay with us because some of the councillors may have some questions for you. Do we have any questions for Meredith?
Yeah, I'm just going to do a Dorothy Dixon, if that's okay.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, thanks Meredith for your address. This has certainly been something that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And after you finish, leave the lectern, I'll ask a question to the staff so that hopefully we can get that process going, whereby you'll know a little bit more about our intentions and also how you can get further information.
Sure.
Okay, so if that's okay, that's my question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. My question is, are you suggesting that for new pools, the 300 millimetres rather below the skimmer box is probably not the right approach, that maybe filling the pool and allowing the skimmer to keep the pool clear and do its job should be part of the process, and then that pool incorporates no further top-ups and using pool companies to keep them clear?
So when we fill a pool, we put in 2 pools a week, so we put in a lot of pools a week, and we've got a lot of DAs in the system. So yes, it does affect our business, but we want to be responsible with it and have some management plans in place. So when we fill a pool, we will buy tanks of water off one of your licensed suppliers. So when we do that, he will bring, you know, there's generally around 13,000 litres in his tank. So if I've got close to a, you know, just under a 40,000 litre pool, that's 3 trucks. So that will get it above the skimmer, and then I do hand it over to Cascade Pools and Spas to clean it for me. But if I don't have it filled to the skimmer, we can't clean it and it just sits there going green. There's no way to get that pool up and running. So whether you allow them to have water after that, if that's responsible of me buying that water, I'm not sure, and that procedure can happen. But I wouldn't send him away either and say, oh, you're 300 mils below the skimmer, take the rest of the water away, because that would be wasting it also.
Good point. Thank you. All right, that was my question. Any further questions from councillors?
Can we just clarify something?
Yeah, sure.
Just to clarify, when you buy licensed water from a licensed supplier, they're actually taking it from the town water supplier.
I know. Yeah. It's from the same supplier, I understand that, but the process is when we do buy it, it comes, he fills his truck. We can look at monitoring that, but all I'm saying is I wouldn't want to send him away and say, I'm below 300, take the water away. Just being responsible about it is all. I don't want to take anyone's water supply either.
Okay, thank you. Well done,
Thanks.
Meredith. Thank you. All right. Any questions of staff, Madam Deputy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to Director Billsma, could you address, I realise you won't be able to cover everything concerning pools, but could you just briefly address the availability of staff to consult with individual businesses about their circumstances, the arrangement with a new pool, because we're aware that needs to be filled, and thirdly, the arrangement regarding existing pools. And if you could possibly touch on that 300 mil below the skimmer box, that would be great. Thank you. This is an important matter, I think, and good to cover it while we've got people here.
Through you, Mr. General Manager. Yes, in relation to the research to date that we've done around pools, and obviously the implications of the proposed restrictions that we're considering tonight. Firstly, in regards to Deputy Mayor, your comment around staffing for inquiries from commercial pool builders and or pool maintenance companies, we will have a team established to be on hand here through our council operating hours to take calls directly or email queries and respond to those as part of our education and communication period, which we're suggesting we will engage with key water users from a commercial perspective for 4 weeks post a decision this evening. So we feel we've got identified resources currently. We'll obviously have the ability to scale that as inquiries increase or decrease appropriately. So hopefully that covers your first question. In regards to new pools, we acknowledge that there is structural reasons why a pool needs to be filled as that pool's being built specifically with regards to fiberglass pools and the backfilling, as our first speaker kindly pointed out, which is very true, which was why a decision point was recommended around filling the new pool to a level of 300 mil below the skimmer box. That was through some initial feedback we had received, and is reasonably consistent with our neighbouring councils as well in regards to their level 4 restrictions on commercial pool builders. The acknowledgement is that certainly that does make it rather difficult to have a functioning skimmer box in a residential pool. However, we have also, as recently as the last couple of weeks, heard of some innovative ways that our pool maintenance companies are working with residential customers to overcome some of the challenges with low pool levels as we've experienced over this prolonged dry period. We have benefited, obviously, with some recent rainfall, which has probably enabled a number of people to fill backyard tanks and rainwater tanks and so forth, which will again provide some short-term assistance, I'm sure, for some pool owners that have the ability to fill a pool with rainwater, and continue to top that up as we can work through the hot months or the end of the summer season. We also realise that there is going to be situations where with a restriction around filling of existing pools, there may need to be some further consideration with our pool maintenance companies around best practice for maintaining a pool at a low level, making sure that chemical content is right and sufficient, how long that period can go for before we are faced with potential challenges around waters that may or may not be appropriate to be swimming in, and to continue to understand that with through that consultation period that we talk about over the next 4 weeks.
Supplementary, if I can.
Yes.
Would you suggest that these pool companies particularly come and approach council at the earliest opportunity so that we can start to discuss with them the details, because this is going to be quite a comprehensive and extensive impact, and it's great to hear that you've been already acquiring new knowledge, and I hope that new knowledge will go up on the website as well so that we can share it. But the question is, so would you encourage the owners of pool companies to come to council and not wait for council to come approach them?
Through you, General Manager, absolutely, and we understand that pool companies just being one, pool maintenance companies just being one industry who are the experts in the game, so they can help not only us and the community in terms of ways to overcome the situation that we face with our limited water.
Excellent, thank you, Madam Deputy. Director Billsma, I have a question just off the back of Meredith's comment about bringing in the water and then there being a surplus which may go to waste. I have a real concern about that because it's wastage of water that we're all here tonight for, to minimise that, and I just want your feedback on that. I mean, are you open to the full tanks being loaded into the pool and going from there, or are you going to be quite stringent with the 300 millimetre below?
Again, through you, Mr. General Manager, I think the intention of the restriction around the filling of new pools is as it reads in regards to the 300 mil below the skimmer box. In terms of talking specifically to tanker sizes being used to potentially distribute water for the purpose of filling of residential pools, there's potentially situations like that happening currently with tankers being part or full loads coming to a residential site. I would expect. I also question whether or not, if there is remaining water in a tanker, that water could simply be then topped up in that tanker to be used for the next load going to an appropriate customer at the time.
Okay, right. Thank you. All right then, is there any further questions of staff?
Can I just tie that last bit
Sure.
up? Is council in active consultation with the licensed tanker drivers and water suppliers regarding matters such as what we've just talked about then, because we've heard that there's some really frugal regarding the water and really caring of it, and some are not quite. So is council in consultation with them too?
Through you, Mr. General Manager, yes, we have reached out only as recently as the last month or so to all of our water carting licensed providers or carters, understanding that it's part of an education process for each of those businesses as well, to understand the limitations and the limited supply that we have. We will be asking for provision of detail of where each and every load of water or that is taken from our facilities is going, and again that provides us information on end use that's quite valuable when we start to understand the needs of our community as well. So yes, in short, we definitely will be collecting that information and understanding how that's being used and for what purposes, and using them again as another avenue to educate on what we can be using our precious water for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Griffiths?
Yeah, just quick question to Director Billsma. The water carters, they pay for their water, do they, on those delivery services?
Through you, Mr. General Manager, yes, they are licensed to cart water, and they would be paying as per our published rates for water.
Okay, if there's no further questions of staff, we'll move on now to Mr. Jake Wadsworth, who's here to speak in support.
Thank you. We are here tonight because of the climate emergency. As Australia is simultaneously experiencing drought, flooding, bushfires, hazardous air quality and severe storms, it is clear that the ferocity and severity of these catastrophic events is not normal. This is what a climate emergency looks like, and right now it threatens our water security. In November, I stood here and supported adopting Level 3 water restrictions ahead of the Level 3 trigger, stating that a litre saved today is a litre for tomorrow. The report prepared for tonight by Director Bylsma is a concise summary of the reasons why Level 4 restrictions should be adopted early. I support this motion. As the report highlights, and I quote, "Should there be no additional water extraction opportunities, and if consumption remains consistent with our current demand, we will need to consider moving to emergency water restrictions within the next 2 months." End quote. This is what a climate emergency looks like. The report also mentions that by setting Level 4 restrictions, we hope to reduce water usage by 20%. In addition to banning outdoor use of drinking water, I would urge you to consider setting individual daily usage targets as part of moving to Level 4 water restrictions. In 2016, I was still in the Navy and on exercise in New Zealand when our ship was tasked to assist with the recovery effort in Kaikoura after the earthquake disaster. I saw firsthand the importance of communication and strong leadership in emergency situations and how these traits can unite a community to face extraordinary challenges. Please look around at the people here tonight. We are here because we are concerned and we want to help. Let us know exactly what you need us to do. Thank you for your time and ongoing leadership through this climate emergency.
Well said, Jake. Thank you so much for that. Do we have any questions for Jake? Yep, thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jake, thanks very much for your address and also your past addresses. They're always valuable and interesting. My question is this, recycled water. Are you in favour, under appropriate controls, and there's no lack of controls now, of actually exploring ways to add recycled water to our total water supply, as places like Singapore have done for many years, to help address this problem? Thanks.
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. Yes, water is the most precious resource we have and we are not treating it as such. I'm 100% in favour of that, provided it has been looked at, like the whole integrated system needs to be looked at, as long as that doesn't affect how things, either plumbing or whatever else, the structural stuff that I'm not necessarily okay with, but the experts are. If that works, then yeah, let's use it. So as I understand, Sovereign Hills has the connections, the fittings for the use of that now. That would be fantastic, but as I understand, it's not connected. So yeah, 100% for that. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. I've got a supplementary question. I'm really pleased to hear that, and I happen to totally agree with you, and I also think water is going to become another form of liquid gold, and that's why I've actually invested my money where my mouth is with that. You ask, or you've always asked, you're here to help, and I know everyone out there is here to help. Decisions in this regard, council can agitate for them, we can represent our community, but the decisions are actually made in this area by higher levels of government, specifically the New South Wales State Government. So the more the community generally, and you're a part of that community, understands that and can actually represent the argument that you've got with the state government and its representatives, and we have two of them in our local government area, the better. Do you agree with that? Are you comfortable with that? Thanks.
I am very comfortable in taking the same energy and enthusiasm that we bring here to those people, absolutely. Is your question, am I comfortable with responsibility for some of these decisions resting on two people? Is that as I understand what you've just said? Or
It's kind of knocking on the door of our state representatives and knocking the door down if you have to make sure the message carries through to the state government, because that's where the decisions will be made, not in this chamber or any council chamber. But we can only represent, and we will, that argument. So that was my question.
Roger.
Knocking on the door.
Yep, we'll knock on the door, absolutely.
Thank you. Jake, can I just ask you, you understood the question of Councillor Hawkins, which was, are you in agreement of using recycled water, which means, I guess he was adding recycled water under the right controls being added to our drinking water? That was the question. Did you understand that?
I didn't understand that as we'd be drinking it, but yeah, like, I mean, like, if it's safe, then
Obviously.
let's drink it. Like, yeah, who cares?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So on a ship, we made water, and, you know, like, yeah. Yes, yep. I wish it was of that high quality.
Thank you, Jake. Any further questions for Jake?
I have a question for staff.
Thank you. If you'd like to
Thank
take
you.
your seat. Thank you, Jake. Yes, Madam Deputy.
So, Jake, or Mr. Wadsworth raised the matter of targets for individual households. We've discussed this earlier on, and so I would like our decision, Jake, was not to actually set targets, but to help people to aim for their own targets. So, Director Billsma, could you perhaps just outline the kind of information we're going to provide to people to assist them to be monitoring their own water use?
Through you, Mr. General Manager, in regards to level 4 restrictions, where we're seeking an overall 20% reduction in our use, there's a number of ways that we can go about educating the community with regards to what that means from a target for across our local government area, what that means and what that converts to on a per person target, and many councils already are operating in that manner. Further to that, and we certainly have already had discussion around what that might look like across our education and communications as we move through level 4 restrictions. Further to that, I think it's about providing some really tangible examples of what that means for everyday users of water. So helping all within our community understand what 200 litres or 180 litres per person a day may look like. If we can become familiar with just what our usage on a day-to-day basis may actually be pulling from our supply, we can all be more conscious around the decisions we make when we turn the tap left or right and how quickly we do that. So I think, does that answer your point there, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, but I was hoping that you would then go more to some detail in terms of what a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute shower might consume, how much water you can absolutely waste by simply leaving the tap running, dishwasher, use of a dishwasher, how much a washing machine load, average washing machine load might be, that kind of thing. So can you just confirm that that kind of information will be going out?
Yeah, certainly. So your examples there on just what our household usage can look like through our day-to-day activities, whether it be showering, whether it be flushing the toilet, whether it's number of loads of washing, and the benefits of full loads versus half loads when they're drawing on similar cycles, how the percentage of water use can be broken down across all parts of the house, internally, obviously, with a restriction on outdoor residential use. So it's all part of our continued appreciation for just how much we currently use as members of the community, and what else we can change in terms of our habits and our behaviour to give that portion per day back to help assist in this time when we've got a limited supply.
Any further questions of staff? No? Thank you very much. All right, we'll now move on to Mr. Brad Dingleday. How are you, Brad? Have I pronounced your last name right?
Nice. Dingleday.
Dingleday. It was either die or day.
Yeah, it was one of the others. Everyone
Good
gets
to
it wrong,
see you here anyway, Brad.
Yeah, I'm just pretty much going to touch on, I'm not fully opposed to the water restrictions, as is Meredith, but we need to have some kind of guidelines there. That is my business, and I'm probably going to speak on behalf of all the pool shops in town. That's our business. Without water, we don't have business. So you're going to put in, and I'm a big business in town and supports the town, there goes our business, our livelihood. So what I suggest is that is there a way that we can find that happy medium? Whether it's a way of us and the pool servicing, where we're restricted to a certificate to go out and fill pools to a minimum requirement to keep the pools going. Because I've spoke to the majority of my customers in the past 3 weeks, and I can tell you, majority of the 90% of the customers are just going to fill their pools. Now, you can all sit here, everyone can sit here and say, we've got to do this, they're not going to do it. How are you going to monitor it? If they're monitoring the water restrictions, you're only testing your waters every 3 months on a quarter. If it's laying out the same every year, how do you know they're using more water or not? So my question is that, is there a way that we can stop that and minimise it? Because people are going to do it. So the true fact of it is they're going to do it. And I've spoken to 90% of my customers and they're saying, we're doing it. Because I'm not popping my pool, I'm not cracking my pool, I'm not getting kids getting drowned in my pool because they go green, because kids are going to still want to use it. So that is my question. Everything, I can go on a lot more, but I think we've already touched over everything. So that's my main feat. My main coming here tonight is to put it on us business people, and I've got a lot of staff that I support and a lot of people in the community. If that goes down, well, what happens then? And I know water's precious, but so is my livelihood.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that from your expertise?
Yeah, well, there is preventative ways that we can. There's temporary suctions we can set up to do that, but a lot of people are not going to do it. I've asked that question. I've put it out there. I can't go and do it for the love. I've got to charge people these things to go out. As plumbing, I've got to put in, I've got to drop down safety suctions as well, because I can't just put down one suction. It's got to be done right, because you've got to have 2 suctions, because a kid can scrutinise, like, excuse the French, but the old bum sucker skimmers where they used to sit down. Well, the same thing, if I drop a single pipe over, they get up against it and they can suck the innards out of a child. So there's a lot to it. It's not just simple 300 mils behind. It's going to go green. It's going to go off very quickly. So I've had pools with the fires that have just been present with all the ash. It brings phosphates. I've had pools go off overnight. And if we drop them down to the bloody skimmer, I don't know what the answer is. I wish there was a magic wand that we can sort this, but we need to find that happy medium and where everyone's agreeing to it.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Jake's saying. I totally agree with what everyone's saying. I'm not opposed to the whole level 4, but can we get to a point where it's us, where we can, there's some kind of certificate that we can go out to give to customers, that they ring us and get us to fill it, and we fill it to a minimum just to keep them trickling over, or is that the answer? I don't know. But I'm very concerned about my business. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and also the water. Don't get me wrong.
Of course. Yeah. But water is your business.
Yeah,
we get that.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. And look, Brad, I appreciate you taking the time to come to council this evening and give us your perspective from a person who makes his living out of water and the enjoyment of people using water. And that's certainly not what council are here to do, is take away the enjoyment from our community.
Correct,
And we're certainly not here to harm our businesses, because as a council we rely on businesses like yours for our economic development, for for employment, and that spin-off goes right through through the community and back again. So this is certainly, I want to make that clear, and councils certainly want to work with businesses like yours. So I believe we've heard it twice now, as from experts, as to what could happen in the case of a pool not being able to have its skimmer run. And I think that we'll now have to look to our experts within our water division under the directorship of Dan Bilsma, and see how that plays out, see how that looks.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to sit down after all this and see if we can nut together something that's we're going to find that happy medium. I know, look, we all got it. The reality is, yeah, with the water's it's getting pretty low, but hopefully that last bit of rain might have put a bit of cheer in the air a bit for us, and I think there's more coming. So hopefully we'll just get the rain dances happening soon. But yeah, I definitely will sit down and we can work something out. Hopefully. Okay,
well, don't run off in case other councillors, Madam Deputy.
I just want to even before that comment, to just urge you, with Meredith, with anyone else who's associated, it might be good to get a group of you together and come and speak with council early in the piece. Yep, like in the next couple of days. Yeah. To start getting, if you can do that, otherwise early next week, so that we can get on the same page, because this is a widespread issue, and we really need to all have the same information and be approaching it in the most constructive manner possible. So if you could, I'll ask you if you could possibly consider that.
Yeah, no worries, not a problem at all. I'm just a bit disappointed there's no other pool shops here that in my position that think like I do. So,
well, you're here, that's all that matters. And Meredith. Okay then. Well, thank you so much. If there's no further questions of council, you can take a seat.
Good on you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff after Brad's presentation? No? All right. Well, we'll move on to our last speaker now, and we have Stephen Healy. Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening. I very much commend Council for the recommendation to preemptively move to level 4 water restrictions. Although it's important noting the proposed extension to commercial users to add the rider that Council needs to be similarly preemptive in assisting businesses needed to meet these requirements as economically as possible in the proposed time frame. Now, I wrote that before hearing Meredith and Brad, of course, and I was actually thinking, what occurred to me was businesses like brewing, in which water is not only a feedstock but a process necessity for bottle washing, for example. So it's got complex needs in which consultation with the broader industry sector would well be a necessity. So you probably need to think of freeing up resources beyond your own people to talk to the needs of business. Now, an accomplished business I would be very surprised if they didn't have contingency plans in place to meet these kinds of necessities. But having said that, small businesses, as we've seen with Meredith and Brad, may well be facing challenges under these circumstances. Now, by the way, I'm having my bathroom done. I spoke to my plumber this morning, who very much reinforced the message I was trying to get across the last time I spoke to you about the dreadful waste we make of much grey water. It's very easy to just use it straight forward on the garden. I'm just going to have a small holding tank put on and make sure that it all ends up on my garden. But anyway, further, however, and back to the point, Council's undertaking, and I quote, to achieve a connected, sustainable, accessible community and environment that is protected now and into the future, which is an undertaking Council makes earlier in the minutes. Particularly that involving, and I quote again, a community that is prepared for natural events and climate change, necessitates analogous preemptive action on the broad range of emerging threats facing us as a result of the climate emergency we face. And I remember speaking to you on flooding not so long ago. Now, I'm happy to expand upon this at your convenience, with many of these matters focal to my past academic career. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. I appreciate the quick time in which you presented that as well.
Well, I thought it would be silly to elaborate further.
Thank you.
At this point, anyway.
Do we have any questions for Stephen from any councillors? No? Well done. If you'd like to sit down, any questions of staff? No? All right then, well we'll now move on to the item that we're all here for, item 7.01, water restrictions level 4. I have an amendment to move, Bronwyn. The amendment is that Council 1 implement level 4 severe water restrictions in response to continuing intense drought conditions for residential use on the 28th of January 2020. 2, noting the potential significant impacts of level 4 severe water restrictions on commercial users, delay implementation of level 4 severe water restrictions on commercial users until 25th of February 2020, allowing time for engagement to take place between council and commercial users on water saving measures that will assist to minimise the economic impact of these water restrictions on businesses. 3, note that for definition purposes, a commercial user, as referred to in the second point above, is a registered business that relies on the use of water as part of their business activities to produce an income. For businesses who do not rely on water to produce an income, residential water restrictions apply. And 4, request the General Manager provide a report to the 19th of February 2020 Council meeting for the purposes of providing an update on the combined water storage levels and any other relevant information relating to the implementation of level 4 water restrictions. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Hawkins. Sorry. Would you like to add something to that? Thank you.
Do you mind if we added a point 5 to that?
I'm happy for you to pick up where I forgot.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, Bron, so we make it point 5. Request the General Manager include in the proposed February 2020 report on water security, and you've got to be good, specific details as to exactly what Council is required to do under current New South Wales Government Acts, policies and regulations in order to enable Port Macquarie-Hastings Council to add recycled water to the existing drinking water storage supply.
Thank you, and thank you for adding that as well, Councillor Hawkins. What I'd like to say about this evening is there's no doubt we are in an extreme drought, and we have been so for a great period of time. Our community has really experienced some very low lows, and drought being one of them, but the fires that we've had for many, many months burning in our region, another. And, you know, this has had an impact as to the water stores that we have. And we now find ourselves in a very precarious situation, even with the rain that we have recently experienced, and thank goodness it fell when it did. But our water stores combined are below 45%. They're at 39%, and until those water stores are replenished and above 45%, we do find ourselves having to make, as leaders of the community, this decision. And as said before, it is not our role of council to impact on our business community or our community at large. It is our wish as council to serve our community and see it as a prosperous, happy and healthy region that we all want it to be. So it is a difficult decision to make tonight. It is going to impact greatly on our residents and the way that they have enjoyed water in the past. But we have to face facts here. Things are changing. Things have been changing for a period of time now, and our rainfall is terribly unpredictable, and we need optimum moments when the rain does fall into our catchment areas and our rivers to be able to draw from that and extract. So it is this decision that I do put to the fellow councillors. It is a responsible decision for our community, and should we all agree on this tonight, I really in my heart believe it is the best decision we could make in this current climate. So thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to second this, this motion, although I do so with mixed feelings, as I think you do as well, because in a way it is going to severely impact on our community, and that's sad, and that's normally to be regretted and only done in dire circumstances. So I'm doing it with very mixed feelings. I'm supporting this, and I'm encouraging my fellow councillors to support it as well. And I think there'll be more discussion. There'll certainly be more discussion in the future from me about this, in terms of, I think, the lack of leadership from higher levels of government that has contributed to us being in this position. But tonight is not the night the occasion to go into that. However, notwithstanding that, I asked Madam Mayor if we could add the point 5 to this resolution, which I think you've enthusiastically done, which is the commencement or the acceleration of an endeavour to have the state government in particular to actually have the community understand what council can do and what council can't do in terms of reclaimed water, so that we can actually get all the information out in the public arena. We can also better understand it ourselves, so that we can hopefully work with the higher levels of government, and in this case it's specifically the state government. We can work with them to ensure we utilise all the options that we have to increase our water supply, and so that we don't have to go into these kind of situations, or worse, go into emergency water situations in the future. That's the point behind the last point. But I'm very happy with the caveat that I've said to absolutely support this motion, and hopefully my fellow councillors will agree to it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins, and again, thank you for adding that point to my amendment. It's very important, and I agree with you. I would like to ask Director Dan Bylsma, just in relation to, so people understand the extraction from the Hastings River, and after we've had bushfires, heavy rain, exactly how long do we envisage it's going to take before we can extract again?
Through you, Mr. General Manager, to you, sorry.
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, thank you. The bushfires obviously have caused a lot of interest in, firstly, that first flush of rain that we saw of a significant amount anyway over the period of about a week ago, and questions have been rightly asked as to what sort of period it would take to allow the Hastings River to be in a level of quality that we would be in a position to extract. We obviously know there's river flows have increased, the river heights have increased, but the turbidity and I suppose the nutrients that are in that water currently, or in those flows, aren't at a level which would enable us to begin extracting from the Hastings and obviously storing that within the dam system.
Can you just, for the purposes of our friends out there, just explain what turbidity means?
Yeah, sure. So it's all of the turbulence, I suppose, which created by the velocity of the water moving down the river. So the speed of the flow of the river that turns up all of the material that's either on the bed of the river or brought in through the catchment as it runs off from the land into the river. So those conditions ultimately aren't ideal for providing drinking water quality to be extracted from the Hastings, and it needs, our system needs a sufficient amount of flow before the quality of the water returns to that standard that we are so familiar with in terms of our drinking water quality. So with that in mind, we expect, based on current river flows since the rains, that we will be in a position to begin extracting within the next fortnight, and that will be a situation that we haven't had for some many months now, where we've been able to extract from the Hastings River to our catchment in the Kawarra Dam. To our storage dam at Kawarra, I should say. Following an average extraction volume on a day-to-day basis, we forecast that we will need extraction for about a period of 4 months for us to get an equivalent of 10% of our total combined storage for the Port Macquarie local government area. So if you think about that in terms of us currently inching closer to 35% total combined storage, which is the nominated trigger for level 4 restrictions, we would need approximately 4 months of average pumping every day to be able to return to a 45% total combined storage, which would see us at the trigger point for level 3. Is that
Yes, no.
cover your question, Madam
It certainly
Mayor?
does, and I appreciate that. So it just certainly clarifies why it's so important that that we're enacting these restrictions possibly this evening. And I'd just like to say, Director Bylsma, congratulations on the quality of this report. It really it educated me as well, and I'm sure anyone in the gallery that's read it would have learned a thing or two as well, and congratulations to your staff on the work that they've been doing and the work that possibly they will be doing as a result of this resolution. So do we have any other comments from councillors? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Quick question through you, Mr. General Manager, to Director Bylsma, who seems to be getting everything this evening. Can you just talk us through, for maybe the people who have not had the opportunity to read this report fully, to talk about the exemption process for businesses in the community, please, and just what that process looks like, and some of the timelines that that sort of council are putting in there at this moment.
Through you, Mr. General Manager, in regards to our exemption process that we have put together for our level 4 water restriction period, we're trying to make it as user-friendly, I suppose, for members of our community to get in contact with us if they feel there is concerns around their ability to comply with the restrictions outlined in level 4. So firstly, there's an ability to contact us directly through our call centre, as many of our community do on a daily basis for all manner of matters. But online, we will also have an exemption application form, which will be both downloadable and printable for those that are willing to prefer to do a hard copy and bring that into us, or it can be submitted online through an electronic process. So those submitting online will receive some feedback, obviously, that we've received that application, and there will be a period that we're committing to that we'll respond to those online and over-the-counter exemption applications within a period of 10 working days. During that time, we may reach out directly and ask for some further clarification around any of those exemption application forms that come in, and we may also get a deeper understanding of what's currently in place for our customers who have put in an exemption request in terms of any water saving initiatives or practices, or those that may be under development or under implementation in businesses to accommodate some more water efficient means. Upon assessment of that exemption application, there'll be a formal closeout of that by way of a letter back to the applicant, advising that their exemption has been accepted under certain conditions, or if in fact it had been declined in this instance, and what more we would probably need to see or be able to work with them on to understand the critical use of their water need.
Okay. Question. Madam Deputy.
Through the General Manager to Director Bylsma, can you please, we've got up here mention of 2 reports. The report under item 4 is fairly clearly articulated. It's about the combined water storage levels, etc. It's the direct water supply matters. Item 5 is something that was mentioned in the report but has been decided by was decided by councillors earlier. So could you just go into a little bit about what the options that council will, the immediate options that council is likely to be looking at in that report. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. General Manager, you're quite right, Deputy Madam Mayor, that the second report there in point 5, sorry, point 4, I should, point 5, I'm corrected, thank you, is very much a continuation of what, in addition to the implementation of level 4 water restrictions, is council currently working on. So prior to Christmas, council established a emergency supply security project team to investigate what additional infrastructure or facilities we could put in place in a short period of time to support either additional water yield, so available water into our storage dams, or alternative water sources into our storage dams. So that project we've briefed council on that and have advised that we will bring a report to the February ordinary council meeting, just outlining how that project is looking in terms of options, and there'll be an options workshop where it will look at all things from additional filtration out of the Hastings River that will enable us to extract under higher levels of turbidity and water quality, lower levels of water quality, I should say. It will also look at the ability to filter any existing water that's in our dam if dam levels do drop to a level where the likes of algae and potential water quality issues may exist, and that will then obviously enable that lower storage level to be still utilised for our drinking purposes. And thirdly, it will look at the ability to provide that alternative to our existing river extraction through means of a desalination plant of some capacity to provide emergency backup if we do go through longer periods of being unable to extract from the Hastings River.
Thank you. Can I speak to the motion?
Yes.
Sorry,
I've got a further question.
Councillor Alley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for, I guess, yielding to enable me to ask this question of the General Manager. With regard to point 5 there, I guess the thing that concerns me about the wording of that is that the focus is purely on what council needs to achieve. It is my understanding that the use of recycled water in drinking supplies doesn't occur anywhere within New South Wales. So I suspect that there may be barriers at the next level of government up. So my question to you, Mr. General Manager, is in responding to point 5 of the motion, will you also be identifying any barriers that may exist within the Acts or within policy at state government level that might be preventing this from occurring?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I think there is broad enough scope in the way point 5 is written to ensure we bring all the barriers and obstacles back with that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Thank you. I have to start by acknowledging what an amazing blessing it was to get the rain that we've just had. Tanks are filled, the ground is squishy for the moment anyway, gardens have been replenished. It's an absolute blessing. But the reality is that we are facing forecasts of much less rain in the next 3 months, and also I'm hearing from farmers that our traditional winter rains have not been as reliable as they have been in the past, and so therefore we are really seriously looking at difficulties with water right up until next summer, when traditionally our difficulties again begin. So therefore we need, and Council is responding in all possible ways to this crisis that we are facing. And I believe that we will get through it. We've planned for a drought, to deal with a drought for the last 20 years with our infrastructure. I have to extend my congratulations to the whole community for their response to the call to save water, not only in this last year during restrictions, but also over the past 20 years. There's been an absolutely phenomenal response from the community, such that we have got one of the lowest per capita demand levels in the state, and despite a growing population, our use of water is going down. So there absolutely must be appreciation given to the community for their willingness to engage in this and really take seriously the need to treasure our precious resource of water. During this process, we're giving people as much information as we can for them to conserve water to an even greater extent. But the reality is that we are in the midst of what I understand from many people is the largest, longest, most severe drought in this local area in 180 years, and I'm presuming that that's the limit of our records. So therefore the word unprecedented is very appropriately applied. So we tonight are dealing with matters that come under the heading of adaptation. We're adapting to the circumstances and doing all we can to accommodate those circumstances. At other times we've looked at mitigation in terms of our long-term energy strategy, and I believe that we've got some serious steps forward that we can take regarding mitigation. There's a call for declare a climate emergency, and Mr. Wadsworth mentioned it tonight. I just want to bring people up to date a little bit regarding that, and to say that I and no doubt other councillors have been in touch with people in the community regarding the climate situation. I know that the General Manager has met with people from the community. We're definitely hearing you. I was so pleased to hear the General Manager say at the gathering at Papenbarra last Friday night that we are working on our consideration of a climate emergency. I just want to share with you my thoughts about this. I believe we're in a crisis. We're absolutely faced globally. We are in a climate crisis. However, as has been stated by many, all of the solutions are before us. All of the things are there that mean that we can address this. We can bring the physical problem of emissions back to normality. We can avoid the extreme chaotic climate differences, unpredictability that absolutely threaten our existing businesses, our way of life. We've got economists now from all over the world, and including Australia, who are saying businesses are going to be in deep doo-doo if this happens. It's all being confirmed. We are in a crisis. But I'm not prepared at this point in time to say we're in an emergency because, just wait for the reasons, here in Council we're dealing with both adaptation and mitigation. Businesses and councils everywhere are doing it. Far-sighted businesses are dealing with adaptation and mitigation. There are even some bright lights amongst parliamentarians, politicians, who are also accepting adaptation and mitigation. But I have to say, the anger, the frustration, the fear that people are feeling is coming from the fact that across both sides of the aisle and in all persuasions and levels of politics, we are finding an apathy that is frightening. If that apathy continues, then we will have an emergency before us, and it will be at that point that I agree an emergency needs to be declared. We have a crisis of leadership. We have to bring this matter back. I can blame all levels of government, parliamentarians, all sides of the aisle, but in fact it finally has to come back to those who are in government, those who are in power, who have the power to do something, and it is their failure to do something that is leading me very strongly to believe that yes, an emergency needs to be declared. Not because of what council is not doing, not because of what councils are not doing, not because of what many businesses are not doing, but because of what the leaders at the head of this country, and in many cases the state, are failing to do. And so I wanted to share that with you tonight. If all that we had to look at was the physical situation, then we would be glum, and we would be rightly so, because we would be facing disaster. We will not be a food-producing population if this climate crisis is not dealt with properly. We will not have businesses who can predict the future if we do not deal with this crisis. But ultimately, we have no real cause to be glum. We have resources available to us to address this problem, we're being told that Australia can lead the world in recycled usage and also manufacturing. Wouldn't that be wonderful to get back on the manufacturing stage? We have got these opportunities offered to us, laid on a platter, but our leaders are not responding to that, and for that reason I am strongly leaning towards the notion that an emergency must be declared. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Would any other council... Thank you. Order. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Thank you. Councillor Ali.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, just briefly, some decisions that we're called on here to make are, I guess, exciting decisions, or, you know, they're something that you can be happy about making the decision for. Some decisions are difficult to make in the sense of you've got to weigh up a lot. This decision, unfortunately, is pretty straightforward. Beyond any doubt, due to the impacts of climate change, the drought that we have been through and we are still going through is the worst that we have seen, and as a consequence of that, we need to ensure the water supply of the people within this community, and as a consequence of that, we are going to need to make the tough decision. It will hurt people. I'm very aware of that. It doesn't sit well with me that it will hurt businesses and it will impact on people's lives. But there is no choice. We need to go ahead with this, and I would encourage my fellow councillors to support the resolution in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Any further comments from Councillor? Yes, thank you. Councillor Griffiths.
Yeah, I think it's very appropriate that we actually move to the next level of water.
Thank you.
I think it's very appropriate they actually move into the next level of water restrictions. I think it's one of Council's responsibilities to make sure that we are protecting the community for what they need as an essential service. Also, one of the things that I do want to point out is that I have discussed with some community members, and they said this is not the worst drought we've ever had. This is actually similar to, but not the worst drought we've had in history. The other thing I would also like to show or point out is that within this actual document, it actually comments on our future options report, which again is actually looking at future-proofing the area so that we do have essential services such as water available for our community. So I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that Council is in the process of looking at protecting our community.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to speak in favour of the motion, I just want to raise a couple of quick points. One is that I think our community has done extremely well over, I'd like to reinforce the fact that our community has done extremely well over the last 25 years, and that the graph that illustrates that in the council report is actually really good news, that the average consumption for each water connection has gone down by about a third in that time, which is a massive achievement on a regular basis, not in periods of drought, because I think this is the most stretch we've been since the Macquarie dams come online. To that end, I think our communications is very important going forward, and how we maintain that relationship and discussion with the community about how we're going and about how the community is going, and to keep encouraging where we need to and to keep congratulating where we need to. And I think council's often seen as a large bureaucracy that doesn't communicate in a nimble and agile manner with the community, but I think in this situation we're going to have to, and I think we're going to have to keep sort of in front of the community on a weekly but even daily basis in sometimes as to how the community is going with water saving efforts, and as I said, be congratulatory or be more encouraging about doing better. And the last thing I just want to raise, and it's probably something for consideration for councillors later on when the budget's being formulated, is, Mr Wadsworth mentioned it's our most precious resource, but our pricing probably doesn't reflect that. And so with council's fees and charges being due, and it's not my intention that we make it difficult for people to survive and to obtain the water they need for life, but I think we probably need to give some thought to whether there is a way using fees and charges that we can incentivise people to take up more water saving initiatives, especially businesses and people who go over the minimum threshold. So that'd be something for us to consider a bit later on. But I absolutely support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any further comments of councillors? No? Well, I'll put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? See none against. Declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. So that being the only item on the agenda, I now declare the extraordinary council meeting closed, and the time now being 6:41. Thank you for coming, everybody. I wish you a safe journey home, and save water and shower with a friend, hey? Thank you. Good night.